Right, this is number 10, and it's just a very small part really, but we are now going to have a look at market share, market growth and market size, and this will come up on unit 1, and it tends to give you a calculation to try and work it out. What is market share? Market share is the proportion of a market that is owned by a particular company. Market growth is the percentage change in growth of that market over a set period of time, and market size is how large that market is. Now, it tends to be that they just give you some calculations to be able to work out these particular ideas, or they may even ask you for a definition. Why is it important? Well, it's really important because when you move on to Unit 2, there's a thing that you do called the Boston Matrix, which is obviously the marketing part of the course. And what firms are trying to look for is they're trying to move their products into an area where there is a high market growth and they want to have a high market share of that. So, for example, this also fits in with the Ansoff matrix, which you do on Unit 3, which is you want to move into markets where the markets are growing very rapidly, and the place where markets are growing very rapidly in the world today is in the emerging markets in India and China, Brazil, South America. So these are the markets that the major firms in the world want to move into, and in fact most of the major firms in the world tend to come from the USA or Europe, and they want to get into those markets because they've got high market growth and they also want to achieve high market share. If you have a product in here which is high market growth but you've got low market share, then we call that a question mark. Should you stay or not in that market? But you may need to invest a lot in that to move that into a star area. And this one you have a high market share but there is low market growth, and we could really see that as regards Tesco's in the UK. So Tesco's has a high market share but there isn't a lot of growth obviously in the UK market. So it's a bit of a cash cow, and with Tesco's in the UK, they can use that money that they earn in the UK and they can then decide to move into emerging markets, which is really what their strategy is. So that's why these concepts are important. When you do them on Unit 1, you tend to think, well, what am I learning this for? Okay, but you do need to learn them because it may well come up in the exam. So imagine this is the total market size, the total size of the market of the takeaway market in Framlingham, which is where I live. And on here we've got a 2 million, the total market size is 2 million. Mr. Chan owns 200,000 pounds of that market, so we can work out the market share, which is obviously 200,000 divided by 2 million, which is 10%, and that is your market share. If you want to get to market growth, if by next year loads of people move into the area, so the market size increased from 2 million to 2,400,000, what is the percentage increase in market growth? 400,000 change divided by the original figure. So it's 400,000 here is the change, divided by the original 2 million, and that is 20%. Lastly, they may ask you to work out the total size of the market. Well, if we know that Mr. Chan has 10% of the market and turns over £200,000, then we do 200 divided by 10, which gives you 1% of the market, which is £20,000, times that by 100, obviously to give you 100%. 100 times 20,000 is equal to 2 million, and that is the total market size. Okay, so in terms of Unit 1, they may ask you calculations on this. They're actually pretty keen on percentages on Unit 1. So they may give you questions like, well, what happens if your variable costs go down by 10%? Or what happens if your selling price goes up by 10%? Or what happens if there is a market growth, if the market is growing by 30%? Now you have to use those figures all of the time. So for instance, you might have a very simple question. It says, okay, the firm thinks they may do sales of 9,000 t-shirts this year if we go back to Pears's, and it says in the article that they expect the market growth for next year to be at 30%. Okay, well that's pretty good. That's a large growing market. So then you need to do 30% of 9,000, which happens to come to 2,700. So the total market size for next year will be 11,700. And then with that figure, we can probably work out the new profit, assuming they give us a selling price, the variable costs and the fixed costs. So it's often quite good to be able to manipulate figures quickly within an exam. How did I do that, by the way? I did 9,000 times 1.3 on the calculator, and that will come to 11,700. on there. So it's very important to be good at percentages and to be quick at percentages and to pick up this data on there. Okay, so I've now done number 1 to 10 and I've covered all of the numbers in terms of unit 1, unit 2, and then I'm going to bring all these together and just show you what you need to know when you go into the exam, so you can very, very quickly analyse the situation. And then after that we go off and we do unit 3. Thank you.